Half 24 midnight news coming to you live from Algiers, and to the headlines. Attended by mujahideen and senior officials in the state and the army, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune chaired the ceremony on the occasion of Independence Day. As Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez pledged to more improvements in Madrid, his front-runner rival Alberto Viejo called for radical political change in the country. Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations Riyad al-Mansour strongly condemned the barbaric Zionist attacks on Palestinians, emphasizing the need for measures to enforce previous Security Council resolutions. In retaliation for Finland expelling 9 Russian diplomats last month, Moscow on Thursday announced the ousting of 9 Finnish diplomats and shutting down Finland's consulate in St. Petersburg. On the occasion of the commemoration of the 61st anniversary of the Independence Day at the Army Club, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune chaired the ceremony attended by mujahideen, senior officials in the state and the army, and guests of Algeria who are friends of the Algerian Revolution. Celebration falls within the framework of long-standing traditions of Algerian army, which aims to value the various glorious historical stations and commemorate the souls of the martyrs. Over the last years, Algeria has endeavored to achieve its water security by expanding resources in light of the growing international consumption and the global climate change, which leads to rain scarcity. Marab Al in this report.
A systematic approach based on diversifying the supply sources of this vital substance is how Algeria intends to meet its local needs over the long term, in order to maintain its national security in light of the growing regional and global conflicts over water supplies. Algeria took the initiative to complete new seawater desalination plants as part of its emergency strategy to curb water scarcity. This step allowed it to reach global averages for drinking water consumption. In response to the recent global drought crisis, Algeria has taken proactive measures to increase its contribution to supplying strategic sectors that consume enormous amounts of this essential material, including increasing the production capacities of the existing desalination plants and considering the construction of additional ones throughout the country.
ماذا بيا مثل ما متجندين تحلية مياه البحر، نتجند كذلك الاستعمال في الفلاحة المياه المستعملة ومعالجة. Les eaux usées traitées, on doit les utiliser في الفلاحة باش نخلي الماء الشارب للمواطن مباشرة.
In addition to the 75 dams identified by the Algerian water resources sector, which together contribute with approximately 33% of the total water produced locally, Algeria has also started building 10 big dams, 5 of which will shortly be commissioned. Due to the country's expanding internal water demand, Algeria has recently tried to decrease its dependency on groundwater by using water recovered from water treatment plants. Algeria is well aware of the importance of preserving its water reserves and diversifying its sources in order to achieve national security in this vital substance.
Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf held on Thursday, at the end of his participation in the ministerial meeting of the non-aligned movement, bilateral meetings with senior officials of the host country, where he was received by the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, as well as by the Speaker of the Parliament, Gutavora. He also had lengthy talks with the Azeri counterpart. During the meeting, the Azeri president highly praised President Tebboun's invitation as guest of honor in the Arab Summit hosted by Algeria last year, as well as the support he received from Algeria throughout his presidency of the non-aligned movement, expressing his aspiration to intensify communication and close coordination in order to enhance relations between the two countries to a higher level. On the sidelines of his participation in the ministerial meeting of non-aligned movements in Baku, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf also held bilateral meetings with his many counterpart participating in the works of meeting. Attaf met with the Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan, where the two sides praised the distinguished and unprecedented level achieved by the economic cooperation relations and the political dialogue between the two countries. The head of the Algerian diplomacy also spoke with the ministers of the foreign affairs of the Republic of Belarus, the Republic of Nicaragua, as well as his Syrian counterpart Faisal al-Muqdad. In a different matter now, the anti-normalization activists in Morocco strongly condemned al-Makhzen regime's sustained suspicious relations with the occupying authority, despite the terrible crimes committed daily against the Palestinians. Hussein Burkan.
In the aftermath of the bloodshed in Jenin, where Palestinian lives were lost at the hands of the occupying forces, the Moroccan regime persistently claims that its normalization with the Zionist entity serves the Palestinian cause and fosters peace in the Middle East. Moroccan human rights organization renewed condemnation of the Makhzen regime's ongoing normalization efforts. They highlight the regime's decision to award Zionist advisor Andrea Thalai with the Medal of Honor, which further exacerbates the aggressions witnessed in the Jenin refugee camp.
We strongly condemn the Moroccan regime's continued pursuit of treason and normalization at the highest levels. One clear example is the Medal of Honor awarded to Councillor Andrei Azoulay by the Zionist entity, which acknowledges his sponsorship of Zionist interests in Morocco.
Critics accuse the Makhzen regime of maintaining suspicious relations with the occupying authorities, disregarding its horrific crimes against Palestinians. Many Moroccans view the regime as complicit in the recent atrocities witnessed in the Jenin camp.
We must remember that this shameful medal coincides with the barbaric aggression against the Jenin camp, involving planes, marches, tanks, bulldozers, and a significant deployment of soldiers. It is evident that the Zionist entities sought to manipulate the normalized Moroccan regime and present it as a partner and supporter of the crimes committed in Jenin.
In response to the comprehensive normalization pursued by the Moroccan regime, Moroccans rely on popular mobilization to pressure the Makhzen into cancelling treacherous agreements with the enemy.
BDS Morocco has taken the initiative to mobilize all Moroccan parties supporting the Palestinian cause. We demand the abolition of the military partnership agreement with the occupiers of Palestine and the enforcement of a military ban on the Zionist occupation.
The continued crimes committed by the occupation against Palestinian civilians expose the hidden agenda of the Makhzen regime. It manipulates the Palestinian cause to safeguard its own interests, disregarding the fact that the cause of Palestine belongs to the free and cannot be defended by those lacking will and determination.
The Geneva Group of Ambassadors of the countries supporting Western Sahara denounced the international silence toward the systematic continuation of human rights violations in Western Sahara and the involvement of the European Union in the violating its decisions related to protecting the sovereignty of the state of the Sahrawi people over their natural wealth. This came during a conference organized Thursday at the headquarters of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva on Western Sahara and the comprehensive European sanctions regime against human rights violations. In European matter, the conservative front runner in the Spanish election, Alberto Núñez Viejo, called on Thursday for a political change in Spain.
Volver otra vez a recuperar la cordialidad, volver otra vez a recuperar los...
I would like to go back again to recover cordiality, to recover the agreements, the consensus, to go back to build, to add and to unify people, to build bridges like we did in this town, but for the whole of people in Spain. And I think it's time. It is time for a political change in Spain. It is time for political alternation in Spain. It is time that Spanish democracy can place a boy born in a village in the presidency of the government. It is my moment, but above all, and most importantly, it is the moment of democracy. It is the moment in which each vote of any citizens is worth the same.
Es el momento en el que cada voto de cualquier ciudadano vale lo mismo.
And that was Fijo speaking as he marked the official start of his campaign with a rally in his home village. Now, in different matters, Sudanese Foreign Minister Ali Al-Saddiqi confirmed on Thursday that the armed forces are able to resolve what he considered a rebellion in short period of time, adding that what delays the settlement is the presence of the rebel inside government facilities and citizens' homes, as he put it. Al-Saddiqi's statement comes as fighting has intensified between the army and the rapid support forces in the capital Al-Khartoum and the state of North Kordofan in the south of the country. In the Middle East, a Palestinian identified as Ahmed Yassin Hilal from west of Ramallah was shot and killed Thursday by occupation soldiers following an attack on settlers near the illegal settlement of Kodemim east of the northern West Bank city of Kalkilia. Nabil Khazini.
In occupied Palestine, not even a day goes by without the occupation forces starting another aggression. A young man was killed and others were wounded by occupation bullets. Other 13 Palestinians were arrested in raids throughout the West Bank. Such acts are condemned by the United Nations, whose Secretary General holds the occupation authority accountable.
I strongly condemn all acts of violence against civilians, including acts of terror. Israel's airstrikes and ground operations in a crowded refugee camp were the worst violence in the West Bank in many years, with a significant impact on civilians, including more than 100 injured and thousands forced to flee. Schools and hospitals were damaged, water and electricity networks were disrupted, and people in need were prevented from accessing essential care and relief.
All of this adds to a series of aggressions, the last of which was the storming of Al-Aqsa Mosque by some 200 Zionist settlers who performed their provocative rituals. The occupation forces strengthened their deployment in the courtyards of Al-Aqsa and at its gates, making the entrance to the mosque harder for worshippers. This comes after a night in which the vicinity of the old city of Al-Qudus witnessed clashes between Palestinians and a group of settlers who again decided to provoke the Palestinian citizens. Only 2 days ago, the refugee camp of Jenin was a theater for a Zionist carnage, where 12 Palestinians were killed. 4 of them were children.
We were surprised with a large number of army military. They entered the area, they entered the houses of our neighbors and our house. They evicted the people from their homes and positioned their snipers. They arrested a lot of youth, and they used us as human shields in front of them. There was heavy gunfire from them, right over our heads as we were walking with them.
The last assault on Jenin left behind piles of rubble and houses destroyed. 3,000 Palestinians from the refugee camp, home to some 18,000 people, were forced to leave their houses.
And just as delivered now, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has decided to grant a $30 million financial aid to help rebuild the Palestinian city of Jenin. Meanwhile, Algeria renews its constant support for the just struggle of the Palestinian people who is under the Zionist occupation and its legitimate rights, foremost of which is the establishment of its independent state with Al-Quds as its capital. Still in Palestine, the Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations, Riyad al-Mansour, said that the fact of not including the Zionist entity on the list of children's rights violators in the report of the Secretary General on Children and Armed Conflict is a failure of the United Nations and an official statement for the continual violations of the occupation. Mansour added in a speech delivered during his participation on behalf of the State of Palestine in the open meeting of the Security Council on Children and Armed Conflicts that the Palestinians received with deep disappointment the report of the Secretary General, which disregarded the suffering of Palestinian children in the occupied territories.
We stressed on them that they have to do something out of the ordinary. They have to send signals to the Palestinian people that the international community is not abandoning them. We know that the international community adopts good resolutions supporting the cause of the Palestinian people, but that is not sufficient. We need them to move in the direction of protection, and in the case also of the Security Council, in the direction of implementing 2334, which...
In related matter, the Zionist forces have also struck an area of Lebanon. Lebanese news agency said Zionist forces had fired more than 15 artillery shells, which hit around the communities of Kfar Guba and Halta. Sources in Lebanon said one rocket landed near the Lebanese border village of Wazani and the second near the village of Ghajar. In Europe now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in Sofia on an official one-day visit aimed at specifically discussing his country's accession to NATO and handing over weapons, as Bulgaria is major producer of ammunition, while the Kremlin was quick to criticize the visit, considering that Zelensky is trying to drag other countries into the conflict between Kiev and Moscow.
We discussed the military aid which Bulgaria gives to our country, the concrete details of the most recent defense package. We count on the continuation of the cooperation, which has already saved many lives. We're very thankful.
Still with the almost 2 years Russia-Ukraine conflict, concern is growing of a possible catastrophic disaster, as both Russia and Ukraine have accused each other of planning attacks on Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Miriam Zian in this report.
Russia and Ukraine accuse each other of planning an attack on Zaporizhzhia, Europe's largest nuclear power plant, while the world is observing the situation with fears about a potential disaster at the facility. As Zaporizhzhia is located just 500 kilometers from the site of the world's worst nuclear accident, the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, alarms are raised over risks of a radioactive disaster. However, neither accusation from Kiev and Moscow is backed by evidence. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russian troops placed objects that look like explosives in the power plant.
Today is exactly 16 months since the Russian military took full control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant territory and facilities. Each country has its own intelligence and other capabilities for determining exactly what is happening and who is responsible. Now we have information from our intelligence that the Russian military has placed objects similar to explosive on the roof of several power units of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. It's probable they needed to simulate an attack on the plant, or they could have some other kind of scenario. But in any case, the world sees and cannot avoid seeing that the only source of danger to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is Russia and no one else.
In an apparent response to the Ukrainian claims, the UN nuclear watchdog called for access for inspections amid rising tensions over one of the conflict's main flashpoints. For its part, the Kremlin warned that the situation in the power station is tense, claiming there is a great threat of sabotage from Kiev.
The situation is quite tense. There is a great threat of sabotage by the Kiev regime, which can be catastrophic in its consequences.
Although the question about the risk of a nuclear accident arises regularly since Russia seized Zaporizhzhia's nuclear power plant, experts say the immediate risk of serious harm appears low.
Russia and Ukraine announced a prisoner of war exchange on Thursday involving the return of 45 soldiers from each side. Russia's defense ministry said that 45 Russian servicemen had been returned from Ukrainian custody The Russian news agency reported Andriy Yermak, the head of Ukraine's presidential staff, said 45 service personnel and 2 civilians had been returned to Ukraine. In a tit-for-tat measure, Russia said on Thursday it was expelling 9 diplomats from Finland. Helsinki said last month it was expelling 9 Russian diplomats as well, accusing them of working on intelligence missions. For its part, Moscow decided to close the Finnish consulate in St. Petersburg, accusing Finland of pursuing a confrontation policy towards Russia.
Strong protest has been declared to Finland's ambassador to Russia regarding confrontational anti-Russian policy pursued by the Finland's authorities. This policy is aimed at destruction of decades-long relations of mutually beneficial relations between Finland and Russia.
Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko said Thursday that the Wagner Group founder could still be in Russia. Lukashenko told reporters as well that the Prigozhin was now in St. Petersburg, Russia's second city, or may have moved on to Moscow. The Belarusian leader added that he is ready to mediate Ukraine peace talks.
Regarding Yevgeny Vasilievich Prigozhin or Viktorovich, right? He is in St. Petersburg. Where is he this morning? He might have left for Moscow or for somewhere else, but he is not on Belarusian territory.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said on Thursday that Sweden's membership in the alliance was within reach after meeting in Brussels to overcome Turkish objections. Stoltenberg said leaders of Sweden and Turkey would meet in Vilnius on Monday on the eve of the Defense Alliance's summit in the city later in the week, with the goal being to iron out lasting obstacles towards Sweden becoming a NATO member.
We welcomed Finland into the NATO family. This has been a game changer for our shared security. And now it is time for Sweden to join the alliance. I have been clear that Sweden has delivered on the commitments it made under the trilateral memorandum. Sweden has amended its constitution and introduced new anti-terrorist legislation, removed restrictions on arms exports to Turkey, and stepped up counter-terrorism cooperation, including against PKK. In the meeting, we all agreed that we have made good progress. We all agree that the full membership of Sweden is in the security interest of all allies, and we all want to complete this process as soon as possible.
In the same context, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan said that Sweden needed to put its anti-terrorism-related legal amendments into practice to be able to receive Ankara's approval for its NATO bid.
Sweden took some steps regarding legal changes. They removed defense industry restrictions against Turkey. The changes they also made within the scope of the fight against terrorism came into force on June the 1st. However, legal changes should be put into practice now.
So concludes our news bulletin. On the occasion of the 61st anniversary of Independence Day, Algeria performed a stunning opening ceremony of the 2023 Arab Games, slated from the 5th to the 15th of July, from the July 1962 iconic historical stadium of Algiers that symbolized the Day of Independence. Algerian Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman gave the kickoff to the beginning of the tournament in the presence of the Arab Profile delegation high guests, including the head of the Federation of the Arab National Olympic Committee, Prince Abdulaziz bin Turk Al Faisal. It's worth noting that 22 Arab countries are taking part in the 50th edition of the Arab Games, which consider the historical participation in the Games.
Algeria is used to organizing major tournaments. This ceremony coincides with Algeria's celebration of its Independence Day. As Arabs, we are happy to share with you this Independence Day celebration.
The opening ceremony was excellent. There were huge crowds of fans. I was so impressed by the artistic performances that symbolize Algerian civilization and heritage. This is the first time I come to Algeria, and in fact, we totally agree that the Algerian people are frankly amazing people. I have visited many countries, but I have never enjoyed such hospitality and generosity.
Nice and beautiful opening ceremony. A wonderful atmosphere, Arab brotherhood reflected by the participation of all Arab countries in Algeria. The Algerian people are great, all people love sports, everyone has come to watch sports. We wish Algeria a successful tournament, as well as all Arab countries.
Honestly, we enjoyed these shows. Today I am wearing a traditional Bahraini dress that symbolizes Bahraini heritage, namely the Nashal dress. As a representative of the Arab Bahraini committee, I would like to show this traditional dress to all participants from Arab countries. We really enjoyed being here in this Algerian environment.
Judy Sand, thank you ever so much for being with us. All I can say at the end, take care of yourself. Good night.